36-year-old Flora Stevens lived in Sullivan County, New York in 1975. She was an employee at the Concord Hotel and was married to Robert Stevens. On August 3rd of 1975, Robert dropped her off for a doctor's appointment at the Community General Hospital, located in Monticello, New York. When Robert returned to pick her up, she had vanished. He reported her missing after he was unable to find her. Detectives periodically reviewed the case to find Flora, but were never able to develop leads. On September 15th of 2017, the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office was contacted by a New York State police investigator who said a set of unidentified skeletal remains were found in southern Orange County. The woman whose body had been dumped roughly matched Flora's general characteristics, and the investigator was hoping that any living relatives could provide DNA for identification. Instead, investigators discovered someone was using Flora's social security number in Massachusetts. Detectives tracked down the social security number to an assisted living facility in Lowell, Massachusetts. Staff at the facility confirmed that the number belonged to Flora Harris, who had been at the facility since 2001. Investigators decided to go talk to 78-year-old Flora, but found she suffers from dementia and is unable to speak more than 1 or 2 words at a time. She did recognize her ID from the Concord Hotel as her own. Officials were able to trace Flora's medical records back about 30 years and learned she spent time in a nursing home in New Hampshire and at St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital in Manhattan. Unfortunately, because of her illness, it is still a mystery how and why she disappeared from Monticello in 1975 and where she went. Frustratingly, authorities have been unable to locate any living relatives. When showed a picture of her younger self, Flora said, "Me?" And when showed a picture of her husband, Robert, she said, "Robert." This confirmed to investigators that Flora Stevens and Flora Harris is the same person. Speaking of Robert, he unfortunately never found out what happened to his wife, and he is not alive anymore. Gabriel Nagy lived in Sydney, Australia with his wife Pamela, his son Stephen, and his daughter Jennifer. Gabriel immigrated to Australia with his parents when he was a young boy and loved living there. He was a devoted father and had a family that respected him and could not imagine anything ever getting between them. But unfortunately, something did. Gabriel worked as a shop fitter. He helped companies build retail spaces around the city. He wanted to be an accountant, however, and was taking classes to achieve his dream. On January 21st of 1987, Gabriel went into the city to run some errands. He called his wife Pamela to tell her that he would be home for lunch. Pamela made food for him and waited for her husband, but he never came home. She waited until she received a call that changed her life forever. The police had found the burned-out shell of Gabriel's car on the side of the road. There was no sign of him to be found. Pamela and her 2 children started putting out missing persons flyers all over Sydney. Surely, someone had to know what happened to Gabriel after the car accident. Unfortunately, no one knew. 2 weeks after Gabriel disappeared, the police determined that he withdrew money from a bank in the city of Newcastle. Newcastle is about 100 miles away from Sydney. His family was hopeful about the new lead and believed this would help them find Gabriel. The lead turned into a dead end, however, and the case went cold for 2 more decades. There was a senior constable by the name of Georgia Robinson. She promised herself that she would solve this case. In her last attempt at finding Gabriel, she did just that in 2012. She looked through some files when she came across something interesting. The Medicare system in Australia showed documents that a person named Gabriel Nagy recently underwent eye surgery. The records also showed that the man went by another name, Ron Saunders. Constable Robinson called this man. He told her that the last 2 decades of his life was fuzzy, to say the least. He spent most of his time homeless, just wandering from city to city. That was until a pastor by the name of Barry Hayo came across Gabriel. The pastor gave Gabriel a job at the church as a caretaker. Gabriel got the name Ron Saunders from a sign for the Queensland Saunders Beach while he was wandering around. His memory slowly came back, so when he got the eye surgery, he gave the name of Gabriel Nagy as well. Robinson flew to where Gabriel was currently living and showed him pictures of his family. More and more of his memory started to come back. The car accident Gabriel was in left him with a serious head injury. He then fell into a fugue state which led him to forget everything about his life. Gabriel described the situation as unreal. He still didn't fully remember his family. He vowed to keep in touch, but he couldn't bring himself to move back in with his family. This is a photograph of Pamela and their daughter Jennifer with the photo album they showed Gabriel. And here is a picture of Gabriel and Jennifer when they first saw each other again in 2012. Carlina Renee White was born on July 16th of 1987 in New York City to parents Joy White and Carl Tyson. On August 4th, 1987, when Carlina was 19 days old, her parents took her to the hospital since she had a fever. A woman that was dressed as a nurse had comforted the parents at the hospital, but was in fact not a hospital employee. Her name is Ann Petway. Petway came up with the idea to pretend to be a nurse at the hospital so that she could abduct a baby. She had a series of miscarriages and came to the realization that she could not conceive. At 2:30 a.m. in the morning, after Carlina's parents brought her to the hospital, Petway removed Carlina's IV line and abducted her. The hospital had video surveillance, but at the time it was not working. Thus, the only description of the woman came from Joy White and Carl Tyson. A guard said that a woman matching the description left the hospital at 3:30 a.m. and that no infant was visible, but the baby could have been covered up. The abduction of Carlina White became known as the very first known infant abduction from a New York hospital. Carlina was raised as Nedra Natty Nance by Petway in Bridgeport, Connecticut. This was about 45 miles from where her parents lived. Carlina attended Thomas Hooker School and graduated from Warren Harding High School. Petway and Carlina later moved to Atlanta, Georgia. Carlina did grow suspicious in her teens that Petway was not her biological mother because she was not able to provide a birth certificate. In 2005, Carlina was pregnant. She asked Petway to give her the birth certificate so that she could apply for health insurance. Petway then obtained a forged Connecticut birth certificate. When Carlina attempted to use it, the officials told her that it was a forged document. When confronted by Carlina, Petway finally confessed that she was not her biological mother. Petway did not tell the entire truth, however. She told Carlina that she had been abandoned by a drug addict. When Carlina was 23 years old, she used websites such as the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There, she found images of the kidnapped Carlina White that resembled infant photos of herself as Nedra and those of her daughter, Simani. Carlina decided to call the center's hotline and was able to get into contact with her birth family. In January of 2011, DNA tests confirmed that she was the missing Carlina White. After the confirmation that Nedra Nance was really Carlina White, the Federal Bureau of Investigation began a search for Ann Petway. Petway turned herself into the FBI office at Bridgeport on the morning of January 23rd of 2011. Petway confessed and told federal investigators that she kidnapped Carlina after enduring several miscarriages because of the stress over whether she would ever be able to be a parent. On July 30th of 2012, 50-year-old Ann Petway was sentenced to 12 years in prison. The judge said that she was selfish and inflicted a parent's worst nightmare on a couple. Petway served her sentence in the Federal Correctional Institution, Aliceville in Alabama, until she was released on April 14th of 2021. Carlina's reunion with her parents was not so smooth. There were conflicts about money, the fact that Carlina still wanted to be called Nettie, and her love for Ann Petway. But with the last public updates, it does fortunately seem like Carlina made peace with her parents and they are all on good terms.